My dear friend in Christ, way back in April 1963, 20 French pilgrims were making their journey on a long but a narrow gorge, popularly known as the Pass. 4 elderly pilgrims were being driven in a vehicle while the rest were on foot. And suddenly there was a trickle of rain, then a cloudburst that sent floodwaters gushing down the surrounding hills, and within minutes the waters hit the pass, turning into a roaring river, carrying away all the pilgrims like twigs on a river. An eyewitness told the Time magazine, and this is what they said: "We saw the pilgrims swept away by the torrent. In an instant, they all disappeared in the floodwaters, raging along at perhaps 60 miles per hour." My dear friend in Christ, the Holy Land is filled with many gullies, gorges, and ravines. This is why people who built their houses alongside always anchored their houses firmly on the rock to ensure they are not swept away by the flash floods. Against this scenario, Jesus told the parable of a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. This is the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 24 to 27. My dear friend in Christ, only when our lives are firmly founded on God and anchored firmly on His Word, we can face the storms of life. Those who merely listen to the scriptures and not put them into practice can be compared to the man who built his house upon the sand. But those who anchor on the rock experience blessings like those promised in the book of Deuteronomy. If you faithfully obey the commands I am giving you today, to love the Lord your God and to serve Him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I will send rain on your land in its season, both autumn and spring rains, so that you may gather in your grain, new wine and olive oil. I will provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and you will eat and be satisfied. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 13 to 15. Then again, in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 15, I set before you life and prosperity, death and destruction. Choose life. My dear friend in Christ, to claim the promises of God, we need to seek Him in all humility. To build our lives on the rock is to unceasingly acknowledge that there is a power beyond us. To build on the sand implies trusting in our own human power. The great spiritual writer and mystic Thomas Kempis wrote, "It is more important to be humble than to know the definition of humility." So my dear friend in Christ, build on the rock. It is safer to be in a storm with God anywhere else without Him. Yes, it is safer to be in a storm with God than anywhere else without Him. May you have a good and godly day.